Yes, there is that factor about festive demand too, and whether we are going to see that pick up when it comes to putting in money into homes and home buying, despite the higher interest rates, that remains to be seen. Let's get perspective on this. Anil Rego is joining us. He's founder and CEO of Right Horizons. Anil, great to have you with us this evening. Thanks for making the time. We are talking about these banks, and they are raising their interest rates on home loans, taking their cue from the RBI. SBI has done it, others have done it, others will follow too. It is to be expected now with benchmark policy rates rising by 50 bips earlier this month. Of course, that was to tame headline inflation. There have been two previous increases also. Now, the overall lending rates have surged. What do you suggest that existing home loan borrowers do with this added EMI burden? Should they increase their tenure? What should be the factors that they should keep in mind before taking that call?
Yeah, so I think it depends on, person to person. But one broad thing that, somebody can look at is to step back and see, if I invest this money elsewhere, is it going to give me better returns? And accordingly, do I repay my loan? That can be one way of, ensuring that your tenure doesn't sort of go up, right? The other one, I think for most cases where the interest rates move up to, let's say, 1% or so, I think, just to let it be as it is and, not necessarily do anything. As and when you have some bit of liquidity, small, repayments will in some form help you sort of reduce your tenure back. So I would think thankfully, even though RBI has, cumulatively increased interest rates by, 140 basis points, right, or 1.4%. Broadly, if I look at an SBI, for example, has increased it by, say, 0.7% in this, financial year. So it's not too bad for home loan, buyers. Okay, and so what I would suggest is just let it be for some time. If it continues to rise, then you could come back and make top-ups or repayments to your home loan.
You're wondering whether they will rise. So there is an if over there in what you say. One will only hope for the best, but home loan rates are still approximately 150 bips below those that were in the year 2019. Inflation, though, is rising. It's rising, though there is a recent decline. More rate hikes perhaps can be expected, give or take. So how has our ability to service and repay loans changed pre-pandemic to now in your observation? And what do you think we should consider before taking up a new home loan at this juncture with the kind of inflation that we are seeing, with the way things are on the ground?
Yeah, definitely, there has been an interest rate hike. Okay, thankfully, it's less than 1%. It is still lower, like you mentioned, than the previous highs. I don't expect it to go back to the, earlier interest levels, but possibly there could be, some more rate hikes, and hopefully it'll stop at, 1%, and, interest rates on home loans, get capped at, say, 8%. And that will be a good, position to be in. In this scenario, I think there's nothing, much one can do as a home buyer, because you also have an increase in cost. Okay, and a lot of this is driven actually by inflation. So if you're buying an apartment, there has been huge inflation, on commodities, and that has sort of impacted. And I would believe that most of the, hikes that have come in real estate are mainly driven by, the cost increases. So I still think that at this point of time, since it's not too high, a home buyer can consider a home loan. Go back and look at, how affordable it is for you. What is the EMI that you can manage?
Yes.
And do a financial plan before you actually, go and take your home.
That's a good point that you make, Anil. Added with the rising home loan rates, one has to also consider, a home buyer has to consider the higher real estate prices that my colleague was just speaking about. Inventories, though, are also rising. So, someone would struggle to get a clear picture on demand for homes right now, because whether one can consider certain underlying realities to determine whether one should wait or hold before going in for a home buy on a home loan based on, of course, like you said, individual affordability levels perhaps, that becomes a tricky one. So how does one maneuver through that?
No, I still think that it's not so high that, one avoids taking a home loan. So it is still, I think, relatively affordable compared to the past.
Okay.
So it would depend on your repayment capacity. Right? So I wouldn't, hold off actually going in for a home loan or buying a property right now, because I think it's only going to get worse. Right? The inflation is, I think, going to last a little bit more. Okay, and you have a negative interest rate scenario wherein inflation is higher than your, say, FD interest rates, right? So in that scenario, it will actually end up possibly going higher if you end up postponing it, right? So I think if there's a real need for buying a house, then I would suggest one still goes for it.
But you also look at it from the purpose of a home loan is a good investment as well. You think of it as buying a home, but also a loan when it comes to it is a good loan when you can actually use your reserves to park money into the equity markets. Would you still suggest that in current times?
Yeah, so normally what happens is, if you go and do a very high down payment and buy the property yourself, okay, you'll find that you're not able to diversify and all that you have is your house, right? And I think home prices are not going to grow up like we saw in the past at, very, very good rates. Okay, so it may not make sense to really put all your capital into, say, real estate, which is why taking a home loan is good, especially if you also have a tax benefit. Now, that is something that you should, look at it. And if you're, let's say, both husband and wife can sort of break it up and take, part of the, interest benefit there. Okay, and it may make sense along with, the tax benefit.
That makes excellent advice. Thank you very much, Anil Rego, for joining us with your perspective on rising interest rates on home loans. We'll keep tracking it and hope for better times.